There was once a man and a woman who lived together in Launceston on a farm in Tasmania. They loved each other dearly and they were always together. Until one day the husband received a letter saying that he needed to go to war. It continued for 3 years. Till one day she received a letter saying that he was returning from war. And so she went to the train station and waited for him. And in amongst the crowd she spotted him. But he was a very different man this time. His face was down, he was swollen, sunken cheeks. He just looked like a completely different person. And so she grabbed him and hugged him, but he wasn't the same person at all. The hugs were not the same, the stare was not the same. And so she took him home and just waited for him to open up to see what was wrong, what had happened. And after weeks and weeks of trying to get him to open up, he could just never quite seem to be the same person as he was 3 years ago. The war had changed him. And so she would always make tea and she would make dinner and she would always look after him as much as she could to try to get him to become the same husband that she knew and she remembered. And then this went on for months until she got to the point where she ran out of ideas and didn't know what to do anymore. And so she decided to go to the local lady who lived on top of a hill out in Launceston, who was known for doing some odd things. So she went to this lady up the hill and said, "I need some help. My husband is not the same, he's returned from war and I don't know what to do." And the lady said, "I can tell you what you need to know. I can show you where you need to go. What you need to do is you need to go into the bush, into the forest, and you need to collect for me 1 Tasmanian tiger hair." And the thought of this had freaked the woman out. She didn't even know that they still existed, let alone where she's going to find one and tackle one to get its hair. How is she going to do that? And so she was like, "That's the only thing that I need to do, then sure enough, that's what I'm going to do." And so off she goes into the bush and she finds this big opening out there and she waits behind this bush, behind the shrub, and she waits and she waits and she waits until all of a sudden she couldn't believe it. The Tasmanian tiger comes walking out behind the bush and she sits there. She waits and she goes there, and before she even attempts to grab her hair, she runs back, scared out of her wits. Couldn't even bring herself to reach for her hair. She ran down and she felt defeated. She got back home and she was there with her husband and she thought, "No, this needs to change. I need to fix this." And so she goes back up into the forest, up into the bush, and she waits in the same spot and waits for this tiger to come back. And she sits there, and sure enough, the tiger comes back and sits right in front of the bush. And the lady just builds up enough courage to reach out, and just before she gets close, again, she's too frightened, and she pulls back and she turns around and runs back, feeling defeated once again. But she's persistent, and she needs to figure out a way that she can organise to get this hair. So she goes to the local butcher, a friend of hers, and she picks up a great big slab of meat, and she carries it all the way up, back to the same clearing, and she lays the meat down where she was before, and she waits behind the bushes, and she waits, and she waits, until all of a sudden the tiger comes out, starts eating the meat, and doesn't recognise that the lady's right there with her arm, reaching out, grabbing the hair, plucks one single hair from the tiger, and runs back down. She runs incredibly quick straight to the lady's house, and she goes, "Lady, I have the hair. Please, how can I make my husband better again?" And the witch said, "Give me that hair." And she took it. And she threw the hair straight over her head, straight onto the ground. And the lady was astonished. She couldn't believe what just happened. She said, "What are you doing? I've just gone and collected that hair. I've almost died. What do you expect me to do?" And the lady says to the wife, "You've just collected a hair from a tiger. That is an incredibly brave act. If you can do that, you can do anything. Go back to your husband, attend to him, look after him, make him tea, give him a bath, give him a shower, and over time, he will open up to you. And just be patient."